It was Primus, the creator god of the Transformers, who appointed Vector Prime as his time and spacekeeper. Although he is estimated to be 25 million years old by recorded history, the clockwork-covered Transformer named Vector Prime claims to be 9 billion years old, making him one of the 13. He is so ancient that he is referred to as the first Autobot in numerous timelines. Even though he is immensely powerful and has the ability to warp space and time, Vector Prime can become seriously weakened if he uses this ability excessively. As a result of his powers, Vector Prime is able to go anywhere in the multiverse at any time, keeping track of and recording occurrences in an infinite number of worlds. In the English-dubbed version of the Japanese anime show Transformers Galaxy Force, translated as Transformers Cybertron, he was voiced by Richard Newman and Sho Hayami respectively. Let's explore more about Vector Prime in our video today. Before we go into our explanation, we have a very small request. If you like our content, please support us by subscribing to our channel. This is a small click for you, but for us, it means a lot. Thank you. Let's begin. Who is Vector Prime? Prior to leaving Cybertron to protect space and time, Vector Prime held the Matrix of Leadership. This lonely position kept him apart from Cybertronian civilization for millions of years. Despite the fact that he has occasionally returned to the time stream to defend it from serious threats, his remarkable seclusion has left him culturally, emotionally, and politically estranged from his species. Some people think he's just a doddering relic since he uses ancient words steeped in the chivalry of a bygone era, a facade he admits is quite helpful at times. Despite this separation, Vector Prime never loses sight of the fact that these peculiar contemporary beings are the reason he protects space and time with such vigilance. These priceless lives can go on and prosper across the multiverse because of the wonder of time. Safeguard is a guardian minicon that belongs to Vector Prime, who is also in charge of the Recon Minicon team. At the outset of the conflict with Unicron, Primus developed Vector Prime, drawn from the sublime material of a multiverse at the far end of entropy. Vector Prime withdrew from the wheel of history during Primus and Unicron's protracted period of hibernation in order to become ready for the day when his abilities would once more be required. He saw the Transformers' greatest triumphs and tragedies from this solitude, only interjecting as necessary to keep the flow of time in check. For instance, Vector Prime assisted in healing Optimus Prime and repairing the time storm that Predacon Megatron had released in the Beast Wars. Vector Prime went into active duty again once Primus and Unicron awoke, pursuing Unicron's trail across the cosmos to stop or undo the harm the Dark God had caused with its polluting presence. Post the Power Links battles, Primus tried to trap Unicron's life essence within a developing sun, but his scheme failed, and the sun disintegrated into the Unicron Singularity, a black hole. Vector Prime was sent back to Cybertron to help the Autobots find relics that would eliminate the black hole because this posed a threat to the multiverse itself. Vector Prime versus Ramjet. Vector Prime often checked in with Alpha Trion about the Search's development. When Ramjet and Nemesis Prime, two of Unicron's heralds, put up an attack on Cybertron during one of their visits, Alpha Trion was forced to enlist the assistance of Sentinel Maximus from another reality. Ramjet and Nemesis burst into Alpha Trion's vault as soon as Maximus arrived. Vector engaged Ramjet in combat, but was unable to stop him from severely harming Alpha Trion, as well as destroying Vector Prime. Vector Prime informed Sentinel Maximus of the danger they were in after putting Alpha Trion right in a restoration chamber. Ramjet had planned for Nemesis Prime to release his dead Matrix in order to kill their creator. Vector Prime and his companions anticipated their enemy's next attack would be on the Callus Primary Energon Reserves Control, so they went there in advance to protect it. Unsurprisingly, Dark Scorponok, another of Unicron's minions, soon appeared and assaulted the facility. After killing Dark Scorponok, Vector Prime realized that the shambling monster had only served as a decoy for Ramjet as well as Nemesis Prime as they advanced toward their actual objective, the chamber containing Primus's essence, located deep beneath Cybertron. Sentinel Maximus and Vector Prime went through a warp gate to avoid their adversaries before their evil plans were accomplished. The conflict between Ramjet and Vector Prime spread outside the chamber and far above Cybertron. Ramjet presented Vector Prime with an alternative to his strategy. He had the ability to revive Unicron out from Singularity, imperiling this Cybertron but preserving all others. Vector Prime rejected, arguing that they could bring about universe equilibrium without rescuing Unicron. Even though Ramjet was defeated by Vector Prime and imprisoned in another universe, this action significantly diminished him. The Keeper of Space and Time left Cybertron right in the hands of Overrun, a minicon who had assumed control of what was left of Vector Sigma and headed back to the Autobots on Earth. Nexus Prime made the decision to tell his friend Aquarius about the Star Saber, an antiquated item he was looking for when they were on Cybertron on Primax 509.28 Epsilon. The image of Vector Prime raced across his memory as he stated to Aquarius that the relic was once designed to serve good Transformers. In order to reinforce the multiverse and make the borders between dimensions less permeable, Nexus eventually found all the parts of the broken sword and combined the restored blade with the Terminus blade. From all throughout space and time, Vector Prime, along with the remaining of the 13, were pulled to this historic occasion. But as a result of Nexus's deeds, Vector and his siblings became extinct as multiversal singularities. They were fragmented into innumerable varieties of themselves and dispersed around the universe, sentient recurring themes that each manifested differently, if at all, in every sphere of the multiverse. The majority of Vector Prime's life was spent watching reality from a distance while not in the straight flow of time. He tried to travel farther into the distant future to observe what would happen when he detected the Unicron Singularity's impact on the time stream, but he ran across a wall that he was unable to cross. After peering through the endless barrier, Vector Prime realized that if he didn't eventually escape the security of his extra-dimensional sphere and re-enter the sequential flow of time to seal the black hole, it would continue to devour all of space and time. When Vector Prime first appeared in the sky above Cybertron, he got in touch with Optimus Prime as well as his Autobot squad right away to inform them about the Cyber Planet Keys and how they might stop the black hole. The onset of Megatron. The villainous Megatron contacted Vector Prime while he was synchronizing his map with the locations of the keys to the current configuration of the cosmos. Megatron took advantage of Vector Prime's weakened recollection of the Autobot and Decepticon fight to persuade him to give up the map. Unfortunately, just when the other Autobots were about to assault Megatron, Vector Prime recognized his error. The villain successfully made his getaway, but not before Starscream led Landmine, one of the Autobot warriors, to become trapped in the gravitational pull of the black hole, causing Vector Prime to establish a portal to free him and take him to Earth. The Autobots of Optimus Prime and Vector Prime moved to Earth together. Vector Prime informed Optimus as they traveled that if the black hole was left unattended, it would not only threaten Cybertron, but also engulf all of existence. Then he made a U-turn, saying he had to go back and get the cosmic map that Megatron had taken. As Vector Prime was doing the mission alone, Optimus Prime demanded that Hotshot, Jetfire, and Overhaul accompany him. Starscream and Megatron were discovered by Vector Prime's troops inside of an asteroid belt. Jetfire and Vector Prime dealt with Starscream, and Hotshot and Overhaul dealt with Megatron. Unfortunately, the Autobots were powerless to stop the Decepticons from leaving once more since they proved to be just too powerful. After that, Vector Prime and Optimus reunited on Earth, where the Autobots had indeed made friends with 3 young humans. After getting to know these people, Vector Prime surmised that the Omega Lock, the mechanism that concentrated the might of the Cyber Planet Keys, was hiding someplace on Earth, based on a symbol adorning the t-shirt of Lori, the female human. Then, Vector Prime helped his fellow Autobots establish their operations base on Earth. He found that the kids could hear the Omega frequency, the Omega Lock's transonic signal that was imperceptible to the Autobots during the explosion that took place before construction. Because of this, they would be extremely helpful in the hunt for the relic. Starscream and Megatron were once more seen traveling in the direction of Earth as the facility approached completion. As the base's secret coding was still being applied, Vector Prime worked with Jetfire, Optimus, and Hotshot to keep the bad guys out of sight until the remaining crew members completed applying the base's secret coding. In order to impress his fellow Autobots, Vector Prime utilized the might of a Cyber Planet Key to send the commander and his lackey running. Vector Prime then gave Hotshot, Optimus, and Jetfire the power to likewise conjure their own Cyber Planet Keys after deciding that they were worthy. Vector Prime reiterated that they were required to locate the Omega Lock keys when he entered the room, only to learn the Autobots received word that their recent effort to collapse the black hole had failed. Red Alert stepped up on behalf of Vector Prime and persuaded his fellow Autobots that the keys ought to be their first priority. At first, the Autobots were dubious. When the Air Force eventually discovered Thundercracker, Vector Prime was forced to assist in taking him down prior to him causing too many problems. He created a time gateway for 2 human pilots to escape the Decepticon. The battle was soon joined by Megatron and Starscream, who revealed that before being compelled to leave, they had already discovered the initial set of cyber planet keys. The Journey of the Autobots. The Autobots were directed to a gallery in Mexico by more research on the Omega Lock's global distribution. The remainder of the squad managed to fend off Starscream and Thundercracker, who had been pursuing them, while Vector Prime inspected the artifacts within. Despite the fact that this Omega Lock was really a duplicate, Vector Prime's scans provided the coordinates of Velocitron, the speed planet, where the original cyber planet key had lain dormant. Vector Prime created a gateway to this alternate reality by using his sword in combination with Optimus Prime's matrix. Red Alert and Hotshot were dispatched via this portal as an advance party. The Autobots then traveled to the British Isles in pursuit of the Omega Lock. They discovered another dead end while excavating an old druid site. Thundercracker and Starscream bothered them again, this time isolating Optimus and Vector Prime from their surface reinforcements. Starscream was battling more tactically, but the Primes were able to entice their foes adequately close to the ground so that they could overwhelm them and drive them into a second retreat. In order to continue looking for the Omega Lock, Vector Prime paired up with Landmine, but they came back empty-handed. That night, Lori informed the Autobots about a peculiar light that was visible from a forest nearby and showed the lock's Atlantis pattern. The squad and Vector Prime drove out to what appeared to be a fortuitous breakthrough at last, only to discover that the beacon had really been set up by the Decepticons in order to trick them. Jolt alerted them about the arrival of humans while Optimus engaged the enemy. The conflict was abruptly ended, and all participants retreated since neither party wanted to be found by other residents. Optimus and Scattershot communicated with Vector Prime and Jetfire to inform them of a situation in Rockville. The adjacent Mount McDermott was on the verge of collapsing into an underwater dam, which could cause devastating flooding of the whole town. To save Rockville from further destruction, Kobe devised a plan to empty the reservoir. Additionally, the Autobots engineered a controlled mountain fall. Vector Prime praised his allies for a successful job once this strategy was carried out effectively. Vector Prime next left for one of the tropical islands, taking the kids with him for a mini vacation before returning to hunt for the Omega Lock. This proved to be an additional unreliable lead. Before leaving for their next location, Vector Prime talked to the kids about his temporal powers and explained to them that while they first seemed great, they had grown constrained as he grew older. After that, the party traveled to the Sahara, where Jetfire and Optimus joined them. There, among some old ruins, they discovered what looked to be the Omega Lock on public display. However, the Decepticons had already been pursuing them, and the conflict for the artifact had disastrous results. Megatron was able to eliminate the Minicons. Concerned about their premature death, Vector Prime used more of his abilities than he had in a very long time. He turned back time in order to save the Minicons, but the ensuing strain on his systems rendered him too frail to carry on the battle. It was determined that the lock in dispute was a fake. The Autobots were directed to a new Atlantis pattern after saving an Autobot bystander from Thundercracker. The following planet, the Jungle Planet, had a cyber planet key buried there, and its locations were listed in the inscription. In order to get Landmine and overhaul to the new planet, Vector Prime built a dimensional gate. However, before Landmine could pass through the portal, the resurrected Thundercracker hit Vector Prime. Overhaul was left trapped in a strange world by himself since Vector Prime was unable to open another dimension portal because of his wounds. Soon after, a different Autobot citizen informed Optimus Prime's squad of yet another discovery of the Atlantis seal, this time near the Bermuda Triangle on the ocean floor. The Autobots swam about investigating the place.
Check the Omega Lock!
I'll be right back!
The might of the cyber planet keys. The senior Cybertronian concluded that Atlantis was actually an ancient Cybertronian starship that had wrecked in Earth's past when Vector Prime, the Minicons, and the kids discovered an entry leading to a control room. Vector Prime launched the vessel and transported it away with just himself, the kids, and Minicons on board to keep it from the Decepticons' reach. Vector Prime located the Omega Lock inside of the Atlantis using the kids' susceptibility to the Omega frequency. Even though Megatron first tried to take the artifact for himself, triggering the ship's self-destruct system in the process, Optimus eventually caught up to his former adversary and engaged him in a fight for the Omega Lock. Vector Prime escorted the kids to safety in the meantime. Optimus Prime won the battle. Each of the planets housing Cyberplanet keys was connected by a new space bridge system after Vector Prime took control of the Omega Lock later. In answer to a Red Alert distress call, Vector Prime traveled to the Speed Planet with Optimus, Landmine, and Vector. He watched Hotshot there as he attempted to win the global Cyberplanet key in a race. He did not truly participate, primarily due to the absence of wheels on his vehicle mode, but he gave support and advice whenever he could. Even he became agitated throughout the races, despite his best efforts to contain it, to Optimus Prime's smug satisfaction. The Autobots got a communication asking them to travel to the Jungle Planet to assist Overhaul, who had been dispatched there beforehand to locate the second Cyberplanet key, while Hotshot prepared for an especially difficult course. Optimus and Vector Prime decided to travel since they could have opened the requisite dimension portal, and Landmine had offered to go. When they arrived, a large plant monster attacked them, but Overhaul, now appearing as Leo Breaker, saved them using his talons. Vector Prime accompanied Optimus in informing Leo Breaker's new friends, Snarl and Backstop, of the danger posed by the black hole, but was perplexed to hear that they had not, in fact, transmitted a distress signal. He then accompanied the others in defeating Sideways, who had issued the distress signal just to watch the groups fight, and in confronting global leader Scourge. He also saw Leo Breaker and Optimus transform into Savage Claw mode for the first time. Shortly later, Vector Prime, along with the other Autobots, were tricked into a canyon by Sideways and engaged in battle with Scourge and Megatron's army. In addition, he was one of the robots there to witness Leo Breaker's failed effort to question the deceitful trickster after the fight. He returned to Velocitron just in time to prevent Megatron from taking the Planet Cup when Hotshot vanquished Override in the championship race. In order to retrieve the second Cyberplanet key, Vector Prime went to the Jungle Planet with Leo Breaker and Optimus Prime, while the majority of the Autobots traveled back all the way to Earth to look into a disruption caused by the Omega Lock. Leo Breaker broke away from Optimus in the middle of his speech and attacked the Dragonbot directly after their feeble attempt to negotiate with Scourge. Vector Prime joined Optimus on his way to Backstop's cave when the Lion stormed out in a fury. The counterattack. There, he discovered that Scourge had once been a student of Backstop. Leo Breaker's reunion with Optimus Prime, who had finally decided to engage Scourge in combat, was observed by Vector Prime, who was also stationed at the volcano that Leo Breaker had chosen to isolate himself in. On their way to Scourge's temple, the Autobots encountered a Decepticon ambush, but Vector Prime had to employ his sword to release the Beastbots as well as Hotshot from a net. Later, he watched from a distance as Scourge was eventually defeated by Leo Breaker and Optimus in combat, earning them the right to seize the Cyberplanet key. Unfortunately, Megatron immediately launched a counterattack with his Decepticons in a desperate attempt to seize the planet key. Most of the Autobots successfully repelled Starscream and Thundercracker, but Vector Prime devised a strategy to divide the Decepticons. To make the Decepticons disperse, he scattered boxes among the Autobots with the location of the key concealed from even them. Focused on obtaining the key, Vector Prime himself approached Sideways and faced them in the visor. The mysterious jet succeeded in stealing the box by floating across Vector Prime and avoiding Safeguard using his ability to swap factions. But when he discovered nothing inside except a rock, he realized it was a fake. Later, he fought alongside the other Autobots to stop Megatron and Starscream from stealing the real key. The Autobots entered a mysterious dimension known as the Consciousness of Primus after inserting the Jungle Planet key into the Omega Lock, according to Vector Prime. A signal once again warned them of something at the North Pole after the god himself talked to them through the minicons for a brief period of time and then vanished. Sideways, Starscream, and hordes of ancient Decepticons, who were determined to locate the Cyberplanet key concealed on Earth, unfortunately emerged from the north. Quickly entering the action, Vector Prime used his sword to teleport in the primary Autobot forces to support Snarl. In the end, the Autobots were forced to retreat, but they gained Crosswise and Evac as new friends. The Autobots created a communications blackout utilizing a direct connection to the mortal telephone network, anticipating that Starscream would arrive in search of the Omega Lock and the other two keys. This was done to keep the refugee Autobots quiet. However, Vector Prime quickly raised a new concern. The kids and minicons were gone. The kids soon came back, bringing the oddball scientist Lucy Suzuki, but Sideways could locate the Autobot base thanks to Jolt's early broadcast regarding the government's awareness of the Autobots. Due to their lack of alternative options, Starscream pursued them across the space bridge as well as launched a one-bot attack to seize the relics for himself. As a result, Optimus Prime conducted a full retreat to Velocitron, while Evac collected the cyber planet key of Earth. The Decepticon was finally stopped by Vector Prime, who vowed to surrender his spark before giving over the lock. Starscream defeated the venerable Keeper of Time, despite being scarred and bruised from earlier assaults, and took the lock and the 3 planet keys.
Right!
Now!
How powerful is Vector Prime? Vector Prime's development was not simple. Vector Prime was chosen by Primus to serve as the protector of space and time, and is specially tuned to its flow because he was created from the living matter of the multiverse itself. The complex equations that underpin everything in the universe, from the rotation of constellations to the motion of subatomic particles, hum within his clockwork body. Vector Prime has the ability to exercise some degree of control over time, showing the capacity to turn it back and change events, but he seldom uses his cyber key power. Thanks to the spatial mechanics analyzer, Vector Prime is able to see every conceivable past, present, and future that are in his sensor range, allowing him the ability to choose the best courses of action. Vector Prime's senses are not restricted to one linear track in time. He wields the powerful sword Wristling, referred to in his instructions as the Cyber Caliber, which is made of ethereal supermatter and has an edge so razor sharp that it could sever the fabric of reality to create portals any point in space, time, or other dimensions. He changes into an old Cybertronian spaceship with Gauss weapons as well as a probability torpedo, a device that causes a victim to encounter the many impacts of several realities when it explodes. Vector Prime is the protector of the Minicon team, whom he met on his spatial journeys, and is coupled with the Minicon Safeguard, or Roots, in Japan, which turns into a tiny blaster/ship that mounts on Vector Prime's arm or nose cone. An effective green shield against the adversary emerges as he uses his cyber key. It appears to need energy, however it may fire the opponent's attack, as evidenced by its application against Megatron. He has excellent sword control and can fire lasers well in vehicle form. Vector Prime as a multiversal singularity. Vector Prime took the time to answer a number of questions regarding himself, numerous different Transformers, and the Transformers Cybertron toy line at some unspecified point in his life. These answers were later repeated in the Allspark Almanac 2, the Complete Allspark Almanac, and a Facebook page run by Fun Publications under the name Ask Vector Prime. It is impossible to pinpoint the precise time that he interacted with our universe due to his mastery of time and space, but it may have happened as the events of the Cybertron animated series were unfolding, as he provided answers to queries about those occurrences and other characters that he had not yet met. In these pages, Vector disclosed a lot about himself, including a lot of brand new details about his early years. He cherished his memories of all his brothers, despite knowing why 3 of them had become terrifying monsters. He also listened intently to Liege Maximo's stories of the Covenant and Primon, which he wasn't even sure were true or simply fables. His holomatter avatar served as the inspiration for human stories of Hermes during the time he and his siblings resided on Earth back in ancient Greece. Wristling, his sword, was also seen as the Caduceus at this time. After the last spat between the Primes and the destruction of the Star Saber, Vector assisted in concealing the 5 parts that Nexus Prime had divided into before going into hiding in the cosmology RX 404.11 Kappa and erasing all memory of his ordeal. He adopted a far simpler shape out of need, one that transformed into something resembling a wristwatch. He used the leadership matrix there and rose to the position of Autobot Commander. During his matrix-bearing days, he had a bodyguard named Scorpia. Despite their lower ranks, the two became friends, as well as his initial unwillingness to work on his sentiments for a subordinate. He was asked to assist the Kron Architect in repairing time itself after guiding the Autobots all the way to glory in the Second Cybertronian War, over enemies including Mega Zarak, Devron, and the Destructons. He handed the Matrix reluctantly to Guardian Major. With the help of his fellow Time Warriors, Scorpia, Kaltor, Autoceptor, and Deceptor, Vector Prime faced numerous threats and enemies. In some alternate timelines, he is only known as First Autobot, as well as, if shortened, Autobot, which indicates that his watch self has frequently been mistaken for someone with the name Autobot. The warriors eventually learned who their real enemy was, Mogon the Mass, an unfathomable being that ingested entire star systems. Vector's thoughts entered the realm of the Primes during the decisive conflict, revealing to him his actual nature once more. Adaptus gave him the ability to forge the powerful sword Risling, and he struck Mogon so viciously that his remnants traveled back in time and exploded in the Big Bang. Vector Prime just had to bid Scorpia farewell in a sorrowful manner after realizing his true purpose in the cosmos once more. He strives not to think about her and dislikes bringing it up in conversation. In some other adventure, the ever-naughty Sideways enlisted Gong to destabilize two worlds using the Omega Locks well under Gobotron, forcing the Gobot Vector to step in. Vector Prime could repair the damage by traveling to a Primax reality before Unicron devoured Cybertron, letting history proceed as it should have. Some major story arcs of Vector Prime. Soon after being shut off from all other universes by the Shroud, Vector Prime came back to Axiom Nexus. Nobody in the city realized that this shroud was indeed the consequence of Nexus Prime's union of the Terminus Blade and Starsaber, and that the Vector who reappeared was not really the same entity as the one who had gone. Rather, as a result of Nexus Prime's deeds, the Vector who began his responsibilities as host of the stack was a single iteration of the numerous that now lived across the multiverse. This was instead a native of Axiom Nexus, a trans-tech Vector Prime, who had developed the theoretical underpinnings of the Universal Stream classification system while serving as an educator at the Academy of Science and Technology. He was only a mere 25 million years old, and had a fascinating personal history as the local Rhinox's teacher. Because of this, he had only hazy recollections of what had actually transpired, almost like dreams, and he had forgotten who he really was. Instead, he thought that the other, perhaps freshly generated, Vector Primes had experienced his escapades as a member of the 13. This enormous burst of cosmic energy drew Vector Prime's attention when the Allspark released an energy flare due to the conflict between Optimus Prime and Starscream. He journaled his observations of the escalating confrontation between these Decepticons and Autobots as he peered between the dimensions. Vector is referred to as Vector Prima Vectorum when he debuts in this dimension. In The Rise of the Fallen turned against the other Primes as well as wage war on them after being discovered attempting to steal a star from a cell consisting of life. The surviving Primes, including Vector Prime, concealed the Harvester's key inside a tomb built of their own corpses and sealed it using their own living essence to deter the Fallen from collecting the star. When they were in their dying hours, Vector Prime was approached by his fellow hyper-evolved Autobots, the Alternity, who were the guardians of space and time. When Megatron threatened the Planacrons, a race of two-dimensional creatures, Vector Prime spoke with them at the Alternity's request and learned that they were seeking to transcend their two-dimensional existence. They had to travel through a portal that appeared to be a picture of the Universal Stream Primax 903.0 Beta someplace on Earth to get there. A team found the schematic made up of Bumblebee, Nemesis Prime, and Elita 7. Vector Prime then guided the Planacrons across it, successfully developing them into greater life forms that claimed the Alternity's position as reality's protectors. Each of the 12 Prime Masters acquired Vector Prime's spark, and while they were concealed in a set-up dummy armor up until this point, they protected the powers of the Primes. The Prime Master would channel the power of Vector Prime's spark via a bigger transformer, giving them special skills that changed with each new companion. Stern and profound, Vector Prime saw himself as an outgrowth of his progenitor Primus and a force for equilibrium and order in the cosmos. His control over space and time allowed him to manipulate reality in any way he pleased, including causing paradoxes to arise and preventing them. His unique power source, the Blades of Time, allowed him to transverse other dimensions. He also carried a badge, which appeared to be for show. The 13 were formerly held together by the idealistic Vector Prime, but he became discouraged as he watched his fellow Primes turn to squabbling and backstabbing. He could see how Megatronus could have killed Solus Prime in a fit of rage, but when he learned that Liege Maximo was actively plotting to harm his siblings, he could bear it no longer, and made a little pocket realm for himself. Legend has it that Unicron and Primus fought for ages at the dawn of time, with neither side prevailing for very long. That is, prior to Primus's creation of the 13. Unicron was vanquished by the 13 and sent into space. A statue of Vector Prime with his brethren was created at some point. They were positioned within the High Council Room. Micronus Prime summoned Optimus Prime prior to Vector, along with the other 4 Primes who lived in the realm of the Primes, as a wicked Megatronus threatened to reappear, jeopardizing both Earth and Cybertron. A passionate speech from Optimus persuaded them to carry out the power transfer. Vector also added on behalf of the group that they could detect Optimus had not yet finished the necessary arrangements that would have allowed him to securely receive a part of power from each of the gathered Primes to combat Megatronus effectively. Vector Prime Toy Line. The Autobot first appeared as an MC-06 Watch Robo in the 1983 Microman Micro Change line. He was offered in 4 distinct colors. As a member of Generation 2 in 1993, he was made available exclusively by Takara throughout North America, with Scorpia and the timepieces for Galvatron, Superion, and Ultra Magnus. He changes from a boxy silver chrome robot to a functioning digital watch that fastens to a plastic strap. In Cybertron, Vector Prime morphs into a massive Cybertronic spaceship with a solar panel wingspan and a ton of clockwork filigree detailing as part of the initial generation of Cybertron/Galaxy Force toys. At the tip of his nose cone is a spring-loaded missile launcher, and over his cockpit is an indentation where his pack-in Mini-Kong Buddy safeguard may connect when in jet/cannon mode. This special bundle from Toys R Us includes a Vector Prime that is the same as the retail version. He also comes with a special version of Starscream, a Voyager-class mold that wasn't often sold in the US, and a whole new design. The sole new toy in that collection, Hasbro's Galaxy Force Vector Prime, is indeed a matte gold and clear orange redeco of Vector Prime launched in the final and 8th wave of Cybertron Voyagers. In the 4th wave of the 2008 Universe television series Voyagers, Vector Prime was redesigned in black, brown, and blue. Notably, this is the first version of the figure produced by Hasbro to include painted wings, similar to those on the Takara Galaxy Force version, and it is also the only version to feature a colored sword blade. Vector Prime, a Prime Master in Power of the Primes, is a fake Prime Master wearing Metal Hawk armor with aesthetic similarities to the classic Pretender's internal robot and shell. The attributes of this toy are the same as those of any other Prime Masters in the series. A weapon component on the decoy armor may be detached and kept in the armor's 3mm compatible arms or folded out to form a weapon mode. The Titan Master-like robot is entirely compatible with the previous Titan Return series of toys and may be stored within the fake armor or driven by Legends-class figures. Marvelous Verdict. Forged by Primus to safekeep time and space, Vector Prime is one of the 13, and spent most of his life as an interdimensional traveler. In my opinion, he seems like one of those individuals whose power cannot be measured or conceptualized. So, unlike Unicron, his appearances are poor. The critical point is that because he is the protector of time and space and a quantum mechanism of all creation, his knowledge and influence extend to the Omniverse. Before Unicron loses the battle and is blown away, Vector Prime manages to keep him in a temporary stalemate. The knowledge of Vector Prime permeates the Omniverse, and almost everything is known to exist. And if you liked our content, don't forget to leave a like and subscribe to us if you haven't already. This has been Corey Whelan for Marvelous Videos. Have a good one, be safe out there, and thanks for watching.